a surprise. Our human history is riddled with bias and discrimination. AI is trained on our human history.
Right.
So it's really not a surprise that AI is going to could potentially be biased.
You're watching the Spotlight Network, starring Hollywood's newsman,
And if you're just
Logan
to
Crawford.
investigators, they now believe a single member.
He works with TV and film legends. And now, Logan's shining the spotlight on the world's top emerging authors and creators.
International were abducted.
This is Spotlight with Logan Crawford, streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV.
I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're exploring how ethics and everyday life intersect with a terrific author. His name is Mark Holcombe, and he has penned a powerful book. It is called Critical Moral Reasoning. This engaging book challenges readers to think deeply about today's moral questions, from AI ethics to civil protest. By combining philosophy, psychology, and real-world dilemmas, the author gives readers the tools to make better, more ethical decisions in a rapidly changing world. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. Mark, thanks so much for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me, Logan.
It's a great pleasure. Talk to us a little bit about the inspiration to create this book and take a case-based approach rather than a purely theoretical one.
Well, I was doing work at the Center for Ethics and Values in the Sciences at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. And predominantly, I was working on the responsible conduct of research. So anyone who receives federal grant money for conducting scientific research or any type of research that's federally funded is required to be trained in the responsible conduct of research. So, and I was specifically charged with looking at how the efficacy of these training programs. And back then, what I learned is that, well, there wasn't a whole lot of empirical data on how efficacious these programs are that are federally mandated, but there was a large body of research on a case-based approach to ethics or to responsible conduct of research was significantly positively correlated with a reduction in lawsuits, medical lawsuits, misconduct reports, and things like that. And so that challenged me in thinking, well, is the way that I'm teaching ethics, an applied ethics course, which was called Contemporary Moral Issues, sometimes they're called Applied Ethics, is the way I'm teaching really the best in terms of aligning with this empirical data? And I came to the view that no, it wasn't, that the majority of textbooks on the market are anthologies. A lot of the readings are 30, 50 years old, so they're heavy on theory. And so it made me rethink how I was teaching my course. And I came to the conclusion that these are 100 level students. Most of them are college freshmen, maybe college sophomores. And that what we should be doing is developing moral reasoning skills. Instead of, yes, you need some theory. You do need some normative theory, moral theory there too. They do need to learn that. But what we ultimately want from our students is to be able to make moral decisions. And it's a reasoning skill.
Yeah. The real world cases really drive that home, I would think. I know as a journalist, we're taught if you talk about hunger in X percentage of the population, it's not nearly as impactful as if we profile one family that is starving. Kind of a similar approach?
Similar, yes. I also have a degree in education, and one thing we're taught there is, I have a master's in education, master's in philosophy. And so one thing we're taught in education is no matter what the subject is, you're teaching middle school, high school kids, is to make it as relevant to their lives as possible. So using these real world cases shows that one, it's real world relevant, and two, helps link it to their actual lives and makes it more real to them personally. And so that's why I chose in the book a lot of cases that, actual college students are going to deal with or may deal with, you know.
Can you give us an example of one of those real world cases from the book that illustrates moral conflict?
Well, some is like loss of a loved one, end of life decisions. A lot of college students, that's when they're starting to, like, their grandparents may be having to deal with end of life decisions. So like a big case, but then smaller cases, like sharing of streaming services, password sharing of streaming services. And as you know, streaming services are cracking down on password sharing. So, the ethical issues around streaming, sharing your streaming passwords, so a range of like these quote little cases like that to the big cases like end of life to give
Yeah.
like two ranges of cases.
Yeah, and certainly when it comes to AI, there's many ethical and moral dilemmas nowadays. The way I look at AI is I remember a time when using a calculator was considered cheating, and then using the internet was considered cheating, and now using AI is considered cheating. I mean, to me, they're all tools, just to elicit a little moral debate from you, sir.
Right. And I'm starting to focus now a lot on ethical issues with AI, and there's a few in the book.
Hmm.
Um, so I agree that AI is a tool and not a supplement. Um, but a lot of people are talking about AI as a tool. What can AI do? Can it write my emails for, my job and send emails to my boss for me, things like that. But there's, in my opinion, not enough discussion about the ethical issues around AI. And that's why Congress, for example, recently had a huge hearing on AI companions among teens, the use of AI companions among teens. And so, and also like the use of AI for recruitment, human resources and job recruitment. There's a couple of class action lawsuits right now where claiming that the AI was biased against minority groups and others. I mean, it's not a surprise. Our human history is riddled with bias and discrimination. AI is trained on our human history.
Right.
So it's really not a surprise that AI is could potentially be biased, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Exactly. It's learning largely from a white male perspective. It's going to have a white male perspective in its output, right?
right.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Let me ask you about this. In the book, you also address feminist ethics of care. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Um, in terms of, I did it differently in a way. I used Carol Gilligan
Mhm.
a lot because a lot of the anthologies they use, I just forgot her name, but anyway, they use a feminist ethics of care perspective that's highly tainted by an female author that's endured a lot of trauma. So her perspective, in my view, is kind of tainted. Um, it's like, for example, she says like all acts of sex are a form of violence, even between consenting parents. I mean, consenting husband and
Adults.
wife,
Yeah.
adults. Yeah, and it's like this, you know, th- this is not really a healthy perspective,
Right.
and you're actually kind of creating like a straw man viewpoint of feminist ethics of care.
Yeah.
Um, but and it's also kind of hard to demonstrate feminist ethics of care outside of like very specific reciprocal relationships, because that's what it's best at addressing is reciprocal relationships or caregiver relationships, even though they don't want to say that their viewpoint has a problem with this power hierarchy, because usually in a caregiving relationship, there's one person that has a little bit more authority over another, like a nurse
Right.
over a patient, for example. So I try to be a lot more fair with it, and and than what is included in most anthologies.
Yeah. Talk to us about why you think, or perhaps you don't think, but why do you think moral reasoning is declining in our public discourse today?
Um, One, our culture is highly biased toward or grounded in a hedonistic kind of approach,
Yeah.
really. Um, and like things with like TikTok and influencers are, in my opinion, turning people into narcissists. Um, and and so there's not really that much of a focus on it right now. And as I said, with artificial intelligence, there's not a lot of discussion on thinking about, wait a minute, let's slow down and think about the ethics of this, and like creating the AI companions, and some companies are doing worse than others. No offense, but in my opinion, XAI and Grok looks like they're going after the least ethical way possible,
Yeah.
to try to get a different market share,
Yeah.
where other companies are trying to at least pay a little bit to the ethics involved. But even if it's ad hoc,
Yeah. I mean,
such
part of
as
the ethics will be, is it ethical to replace human beings with this AI? And it's already happening, of course, and it could happen in large scale. I mean, you could have it at supermarkets, you could have it virtually anywhere once robotics and AI integrate, right?
right. But I mean, the industrial revolution displaced a lot of workers
Sure.
also in the past. And so markets and the job market altered, and so jobs that were lost in one sector ended up being gained in another. So we're kind of seeing the same pattern with AI, So it happened in the industrial revolution, it happened with the technological revolution. Like, for example, with the advent of the internet, since you mentioned it earlier, it created a lot of new jobs for web designers and IT and other things. So it just kind of shifted the marketplace and shifted the training and the job skills needed. And the same is going on with AI right now. It's going to be, well, you're going to have AI as a job skill.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. And it'll just make people more productive, perhaps. So they might need fewer, but like you said, those other people might go into different areas, areas that haven't evolved yet because of the advent of AI will just bring them about eventually. Talk to us about what you hope readers take away from the book and who your target audience is.
um, I think the target audience is shifting a little bit because originally it was a textbook, but I don't want it to be limited to a university setting. And
Yeah.
going back to AI, it's almost impossible to escape it today,
Yep.
right? Um, we're seeing this shift that like younger generations, Gen Z and younger, are starting to say, why do I need to go to college?
Yeah.
Why do I need to spend thousands of dollars on um, college tuition to teach me to do things that AI can do for me? And I just read an article today earlier about how it's really more of skilling, job skilling. So companies are going to start looking more at your job skills than your and AI skills, but not limited to AI, but your job skills more than your degree and your educational background. And so in that way, I'm presenting it, wanting it to reach out to a mass market and not exclusively to a college market, a university market as a university textbook, because as we were saying earlier, people aren't thinking ethically in a formal sort of way. And so I think we're going to need, and I hope people will be interested in like developing this as a critical reasoning skill. And again, going back to AI, the fear is that AI is going to take away critical thinking skills. But we have to have, people are going to have to make moral decisions. And so they're going to have moral reasoning skills. The
Yeah.
emphasis there is on skill instead of knowledge, but as a critical thinking skill, a type of critical thinking skill.
Yeah, I think it's very, very vital. And like you said, as we go on, fewer and fewer people might go to college, might not go to college, because in many cases, the need has been eliminated because of online learning, because of AI, because of other advancements. I know we've seen that trend in the digital world already in web design and so forth. You don't need necessarily a BA or a BS to design a website. So people are focusing on different skill sets, but having the skill set of moral reasoning, critical moral reasoning, will be an important one to have on your resume, along with your ability to be an AI prompt engineer. I
Yeah,
think without a doubt, in fact, mixing the two might be a good thing to have. The name of the
right.
book we're talking about today is Critical Moral Reasoning. In it, Mark reminds us that ethics isn't just a subject, it's a skill we must practice every day. His book challenges us to think critically, act compassionately, and live with purpose. Mark, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you very much.
I
Thank you,
appreciate your
Logan.
time, your insight, and the wonderful work on this book. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time.